Well, here we are back in the forest, following the little path back to where we had planted some fruit trees. We planted some this spring and some a year ago. They're right up here in a little bit. I came all the way back out here and made a video and realized that the other device was full and the video was not actually made, so now I'm back here with another one, another device making another video. I'm not quite as relaxed as I was the first time. Anyhow, this is just thick in here. The ferns are incredibly tall growing back here. There's bracken fern everywhere. See this, it's a sea of bracken fern. Let's go down in the bracken fern, see what it looks like. Down in them. It's pretty thick. See, and this is what the plants see that are growing under the bracken fern when they look up. Kind of a thick cover. See that? I have some small trees I planted this spring that are shorter than the ferns that are covered up by them. Anyhow, that's a scrap lumber pile from when we built a little cabin back here. Still needs a little bit more work, but there it is, front of it. And here is our clearing where we've planted a bunch of fruit trees and some nut trees. And it was grassy, and then all the ferns have come up. There's one of the apple trees right there. We planted that this spring. It looks good. Here's a couple of gooseberry plants, and this year there's a lot of gooseberries, but these two plants don't seem to have many. Let's see if we can find some on there. Here's one. Right there. See that? There's a gooseberry. It's not ripe. It'll turn like a dark purple. They're really yummy. Except for they kind of have some spines on them you need to take off. See, there's a bunch of gooseberry plants there. So in amongst those ferns are many, many little trees. This is a tiny garden that we made around a rock. Conglomerate rock. See how this rock is made up? All kinds of smaller rocks stuck together. It's a conglomeration of other rocks. We just have some small row of peas growing there, maybe a 4-foot row. Then there's some peas we picked the other day that we forgot to take with us. And there's some little bit of carrots growing, and there's some radishes I replanted. They're just coming up. Here is Julia's herb garden, part of it. This is growing really well. She planted this spring. Yeah, it is looking good. It's really flyy and mosquito-y out here. Lots of deer flies, lots of mosquitoes. So let's go up here and see what we can find. Let's check on our hop plants. I planted some hops underneath these trees right here, thinking they'd just grow up the trees when they got to that age. But they are still small. I planted them this spring, and this right here is a little hop vine. I never realized this, but it has little kind of grabbers. Look at, there's a mosquito biting me right now. Look at that, full of blood. These hops have little kind of grabby spines on their stems. I never noticed that before. Anyhow, they're probably maybe 3 feet long if I stretched it out right now. Let's see, I planted a couple under this tree too. Well, it's alive. There's another hot plant. There's a bunch of apple trees. Here's an apple tree I planted this spring, and it's looking great. And this I just got potted from a local nursery. And it looks pretty healthy. Some of these other ones I planted a year ago bear root, and look at this one. It is completely surrounded by ferns and bindweed, blackberries, grasshoppers. Hey, little grasshopper, how are you? There's the apple tree. And it really needs to be cleared out. Look at that. How much stuff is growing around it. It's just thick. Thick, 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 thick. There's another apple tree sticking up out of the ferns. This one looks really good. Now this one, I took the cage off of it. This whole area, there's a little garden in there. I have some potatoes planted in there, but this whole area here is fenced now for deer. But before that was fenced, I put cages around some of these trees so the deer wouldn't eat them, and I don't have all the cages off yet. See, here's another apple tree. Right there. So let's go down the hill and see how things are growing down the hill. It is a warm, sunny day today. See, here's an apple tree I planted a year ago. It's looking good. And then this one over here, I planted bare root this spring, so just a few months ago. It's looking pretty good too. There's another one right there. There's the little cabin totally hidden up there in the trees. There's some little cherry trees in here. Here's a cherry tree that I planted bare root this spring, and it looks like it's doing pretty well. It's only about 2 feet tall, but it's growing. Man, the flies are buzzing like crazy. Here is another little garden around a rock. A lot of carrots. Soil needs some more fertility here. I need to work on that. Come on, there's a dragonfly buzzing around here. I wish it had brought its friends to eat the mosquitoes. See, there it is. And the flies. Sometimes you're walking back here and you're surrounded by deer flies, and the dragonflies come in and just grab them out of the hair, out of the air right next to your head. There's this beautiful dragonfly. Look at that beauty. Oh, here's an aronia berry plant. I planted a few of these, and it's doing okay, I guess. It doesn't seem to be growing real fast, but it's growing. And there it is, and this one has some berries on it. I'll see what they taste like when they get ripe. But there they are. They must be self-pollinating. I think they are, because this is the only tree here that bloomed in It has berries, so. I planted some honeyberries, which is an edible honeysuckle, this spring too, and here's one of the bushes right there. Doesn't seem to be really growing super fast, but these ferns, they're pretty tall and they shade these plants. Here's another one way down in here in the hole. See, when this plant looks around, it is just surrounded by a forest of ferns and other plants. And there it is down there, just getting enough light to grow a little bit. And over here I planted a heartnut tree, which is a hybrid. I think it's a combination of a walnut and some other nut tree, and I'm not exactly positive. I don't remember, but it has a little yellow leaf on it. But it's growing pretty well, actually, and we are not in the zone where those should grow very well, but it seems to be doing fine. Down here, there's a few more nut trees. Let's go see what's growing down here. Back in here is a butternut I planted, and it looks really good. And those actually are for this zone, climate zone, so it's doing fine. I just planted that a year ago. There's some yarrow growing there. Yulia uses that for different medicines she makes. Now up this hill, we'll go and check on the pear trees. I planted 6 or 8 pear trees this year, bare root in the spring, and I think they're doing okay. Let's go see. It is a jungle in here. It's like a beautiful Eden with lots of flies and mosquitoes and wood ticks. There's our root cellar that we need to get at least 4 dump truck loads of dirt to cover over. So there's a lot of work left to do on that yet. And over here, lots of dogbane plants. See that? Beautiful plant blooming there. Over here, let's see how things are going. This is an apple I planted about a year ago, a little over a year, and it looks pretty healthy to me. And then here's the pears that were just twigs. Didn't really have any branches on them at all this spring. I planted them bare root, and to me it looks pretty good. Let's check this one out. There's another one. It's looking good. All of this here is new growth, and it's still got plenty of time to grow, so I think it's really doing well. Here's some bindweed, which is kind of a morning glory, and that one's going to open, and when that flower opens, it's beautiful. There's all the other blossoms ready to open up, and it'll be just a row of flowers there. Over here, I planted a couple of Manchurian apricots, and they are growing fantastic. This tree right here. And this spring it was about half that size. And it is really, really growing. There's another one over here, doing pretty well too. Some things are growing really well here, and some things are taking their time, but that's okay. Fast isn't always better. What's back here? Here is a little chestnut tree right there. And those are really for a warmer climate zone too, but it seems like our climate is warming. Anyhow, so we're going to see how that grows. It's growing and alive. It doesn't seem like it's growing really fast, but kind of farther back here in the woods, right in that spot of sun, is a stone pine. It's a pine nut like what you buy in the store. I think this is a Siberian one. Might be a Korean one, I'm not sure, but it's doing pretty well. All this here is new growth this year. There's another one in that cage. But it is just thick. We've had lots of rain this year, and all the plants are growing like crazy. Let's go check out our, now I can't remember what they're called. Let's check them out even though I can't remember what they're called. You know, sending up some new growth. Sea buckthorn, sea berry, that's what it's called. See, this was bare root, and this is all new here. It's not growing super fast, but it's growing. There's another one. Another one. There's the top of a pear tree sticking out of the ferns. These ferns here are mighty thick. There's a goldenrod sticking its head up above the ferns. And down here in the depths, it is thick. There, oops. There's the ferns. There's some blue sky where the sun can come in and shine on the sea buckthorn plant. Now here is a goldenrod stem that got crushed with a little growth on it that my kids and I call a nut ball. But anyhow, there is a little worm growing inside of there, and if you break that open, there's a little white worm in there, and I don't know exactly what it turns into, but it creates this growth on the goldenrod plant. When it becomes time, it makes a little hole and comes out, and I'm sure it turns into some kind of creature. But nature has its ways, and that's the way of that one. Well, let's see. I think we've looked at most things. Oh, let's look at this hazelnut bush. There are wild hazelnuts growing back here. And this is a pretty good year for the wild hazelnuts. Some of the bushes are completely covered. This is a beaked hazelnut, and there's a cluster of them right here. There's nuts growing inside of these. But these have little hairs on the husk that come harvest time, if you want to eat them, get in your fingers, kind of like a micro cactus spine. And it's not real bothersome, but it's somewhat bothersome. Now the other kind of hazelnut that grows here, which I don't see any close by, but those don't have those little hairs, and I really prefer those. And those are more common anyhow, even though I don't see any. Let's see what's over here. Oh, that's another These are all beaked hazelnuts. Here's a wild cherry tree. I think it's a black cherry, I think. But those are going to develop into dark, dark purple cherries, probably twice that big, with a pit inside. And I think they're delicious. You can just put them in your mouth and spit out the pit. You can make wine out of them or whatever. This tree doesn't, it has a good amount, but not tons. Some of the trees this year are just covered. We didn't have any late frosts this year, so see, there's another cherry tree. So blossoms didn't freeze on a lot of these wild fruit trees. These are wild. We are way up here in northern Wisconsin where we have a cold climate. I went skiing May, I think 3rd this year, and it was continuous skiing all winter till then, which is very, very late for us, but I mean, we can have long cold seasons. Here's looking back up the hill where there's probably maybe a dozen apple trees in here, and there's some plum trees and some domestic cherry trees and different things. And I don't spend lots of time mowing because I kind of like the native plants, and I think the trees in the end will hold their own. Who's this? Who is that? There's a grasshopper sitting on that fern. Happy. Okay. Bye.